teenager goes to a track meet. It starts raining. He steps under a tent to stay dry. Someone tells him to leave. He doesn't want to. Words are exchanged. And in the chaos that follows, one 17-year-old boy ends up with a knife in his heart. One stab, one time. He dies. And the boy who stabbed him gets 35 years in prison. Now, this case has divided the entire country. And when Cardi B decided to weigh in on it, she said something that made a lot of people stop and think. She made a point about race that honestly, a lot of people couldn't argue with. But then, in the same breath, she said something else, something that completely destroyed her own argument. Something so contradictory, so logically backwards, that even people who agreed with her first point couldn't defend what came next. And today, we are going to break down every single second of this, because this case is not just about a tent at a track meet. This is about race in America, about self-defense, about what it means to raise a black boy in this country, about whether 35 years is justice or just punishment. Stay with me, because this one gets complicated fast.
If Anthony was white and he was surrounded by a whole bunch of black football players and two twins, the case would have went extremely different. I highly doubt that Anthony went over there by himself to a tent full of strong-ass football players. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna cause a ruckus.
Black women who have black male children live in fear and agony every single day. A fear and agony that I promise you, the Metcalfs probably never spent a day.
Before we get back to the show, I want to tell you guys about Shinergy.
Before we get into Cardi B's argument, before we get into the host's response, before we talk about race or justice or 35 years, you need to understand exactly what happened, because a lot of people have been talking about this case without knowing the full picture. Here is what we know. Carmelo Anthony, not the NBA player, a 17-year-old student, went to a track meet. He was not competing. He was there supporting his team. It started raining. Carmelo walked under a tent that belonged to another team, a team that included Austin Metcalf, a 16-year-old athlete. Words were exchanged about whether Carmelo had the right to be under that tent. It escalated. Austin Metcalf ended up stabbed once, directly in the heart. He died. Carmelo was arrested, tried, and convicted. The sentence? 35 years. Now, here is where it gets complicated, because depending on who you ask, this is either a straightforward case of murder, or it is one of the most glaring examples of racial injustice in the Texas court system in recent memory. And Cardi B, one of the most followed women on the internet, decided she was going to tell the world exactly which side she was on. Now let's be honest about something. Cardi B's first point, her opening argument, was not crazy. She said something that a lot of people in this country feel deeply. She said, if Anthony was white and he was surrounded by a tent full of strong black football players, and one of those black players told him to get out, and he didn't, and things escalated, the outcome would have been completely different. And you know what? She is probably right about that, because we have seen this country operate with different standards for different people. We have seen cases where the race of the victim and the race of the defendant changed everything about how a jury responded. We have seen Texas specifically hand down sentences that made people question whether the scales of justice were actually balanced. So when Cardi B raised that point, a lot of people nodded. A lot of people said, yes, that is a real conversation. That is worth having. And as a mother, she connected it to something personal. She talked about the fear that black mothers carry every single day when their sons walk out the door. The fear that something, anything, could go wrong, that their child could end up in a situation that spins out of control, and that the system, when it gets involved, will not treat their son the same way it would treat someone else's son. That fear is real. That pain is real. And Cardi B articulated it in a way that connected with millions of people who feel that same thing.
Roll the clip.
A lot of people don't do that. It is a very unfortunate situation. And I'm not into the because a race thing. It's not a race thing. What's wrong is wrong and what's right is right. However, in this situation, it really is a race thing. I am pretty sure, especially in Texas, this happens a lot in Texas. If Anthony was white and he was surrounded by a whole bunch of black football players and two twins, the case would have went extremely different. What I would tell my sons, son, don't let nobody punk you. Don't ever let nobody make you feel less of a man, and always defend yourself. I highly doubt that Anthony went over there by himself to a tent full of strong ass football players. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna cause a ruckus. Just because you have a knife and you against 14 boys that are strong, that tackle people for a living, that's not gonna make you feel tough, because somebody's gonna knock that knife off your hand. If Austin and his team felt a certain type of way that he went to the tent, he should have went to his coach. What do they tell us in school? If you have an issue with somebody, go to a teacher, go to an adult. If Austin had an issue with Anthony being in the tent, he should have went to the coach and told the coach, take him out of the tent.
But here is where Cardi B's argument collapsed on itself. And I want you to pay close attention to this part, because in the same video, in the same breath almost, Cardi B said what she tells her own sons. She said, don't let nobody punk you. Don't ever let nobody make you feel less of a man. Always defend yourself. Now hold on. Let's think about what just happened here. On one hand, Cardi B is saying Austin Metcalf should not have confronted Carmelo in the tent. She is saying Austin escalated the situation. She is saying Austin should have gone to a coach instead of handling it himself. She is saying Austin made a mistake by getting aggressive. But on the other hand, she is telling her own sons, don't let nobody punk you. Always defend yourself. Do you see what just happened? Cardi B spent 1 minute arguing that Austin Metcalf should have walked away from a confrontation, should have de-escalated, should have gone to an adult. And then in the very next minute, she told her own children to do the exact opposite. She told her sons that if someone makes them feel disrespected, they should defend themselves. She gave her sons the exact same mentality that she just blamed Austin Metcalf for having. This is not a small contradiction. This is the entire foundation of her argument falling apart in real time. Because you cannot say Austin was wrong for not walking away and also say my sons should never walk away from disrespect. You cannot hold those two positions at the same time. And the host caught it immediately.
I feel bad for her kids because she finna get them in prison. Don't let nobody punk you, or don't let nobody make you feel less than a man. Let me give you some advice, ladies and gentlemen. Put your son on the camera so he can see this. No one makes you feel any way. You are entitled to the way you feel. You allowed them to make you feel like you're a punk or like they doing something to you. It's up to you to feel that way. If somebody asks me to leave the tent, I can decide if I feel offended or not. They don't make me feel offended. I decide that, you know what, it is their tent. It ain't my tent. I don't like the way they talking to me, but let me get up out of here before some stuff hit the fan. I can't whoop all these dudes, so I'm gonna get up out the tent. But people like her make you think that you can't control your own emotional response and that somehow you a punk if you just follow the rules. And she made it out to be, well, if they didn't like Carmelo in the tent, they should have went to the coach. Well, if Carmelo don't want them to tell him nothing, he should have went to the coach. He's not even a track athlete. If Carmelo felt like they were punking him and not letting him stay in the tent, why didn't he go to a coach? They never teach these boys to be the bigger person. Let's get into Jasmine.
But Cardi B was not the only one who said something that raised eyebrows, because a lawyer, someone with a law degree, someone who is supposed to understand how the legal system works, went on television and said something that left everyone speechless. She was trying to argue that 35 years was too harsh a sentence, and that is a legitimate argument that reasonable people can make. But here is how she chose to make it. She said, he only hit him one time. The tool, I don't know what to call it, the blade wasn't even that long. It wasn't even considered unlawful carrying of a weapon. She referred to a knife, the weapon that killed a 16-year-old boy, as a tool. She pointed out that Carmelo only stabbed Austin once, as if the number of times you stab someone is what determines whether it was serious. And the host's response to this was exactly what most people watching were thinking. He said, you hit someone in the heart one time. That is all it takes. You do not need to stab someone 5 times to kill them. You do not need a long blade to kill them. One stab, heart, dead. It is like saying, he only shot him once. It was a small bullet. The gun was not that big. None of that matters because Austin Metcalf is still dead, and the lawyer's attempt to minimize the weapon and the number of stabs instead of making people sympathetic to Carmelo made people question whether anyone on that side of the argument was taking Austin's death seriously enough.
Are broken. And what we saw with that verdict is the evidence of a broken system. Now listen, from everything that I understand, which I wasn't at the trial because obviously I got a day job, but it's my understanding that Carmelo ended up stabbing, puncturing, I don't know what this tool was that they talk about, knife, or some referred to it as a tool. He ended up hitting Austin one time, and it was about where he hit him. One time, 2 inches. This wasn't someone who said, hey, let me stab you 5, 6, 7 times. And so when you're looking at the punishment range, there's a reason in Texas that it goes from 5 to 99 or life, because you are looking at how intentional, like how bad was this? 35 years for a kid who had decided to go under a tent that was not his team's tent as it was raining, and simply didn't want to be put out in the rain by some random kid that he didn't know who was larger than him. Listen, a lot of people don't know what it is to live as a black person in this country, but just like you can give the benefit of the doubt to so many police officers when they go out and they shoot some black unarmed person, even though they are trained, the fact that there was little to no mercy seen or humanity seen when this black boy said that I was scared, or the fact that honestly anybody else who did something with such a small object, all I know is that it wasn't considered unlawful carrying of a weapon because the blade was not long enough, that they wouldn't even say, well, maybe this was more so something that looked like manslaughter.
Took me everything in me not to say nothing. You know how stupid you gotta be to say what she said. It was an object. It wasn't even a knife. Then at the end, she go, the blade wasn't even as long. Is it an object or a knife? He only hit him one time in the heart. You ain't gotta hit him number once. You hit him in the chest with a knife. It's like saying he only shot him one time. It was a dome shot. He didn't have to shoot him more times. He went like this and went down and died. No accountability whatsoever. And y'all, you know, taking up for these police officers that's trained. That, do you know how different it is to be at a track meet and a guy say, move out of my tent, and he say, I don't want to fight you, and you stabbed him, compared to a police officer who people are trying to beat and kill? Ain't nobody asking a cop to get out of the tent and he starts shooting people. You talking about high-speed chases. You talking about fighting for your life, fighting for your gun, somebody on PCP. I mean, what are you saying? Okay, there's more.
Now let's talk about the tent, because this is where the debate gets most heated. Cardi B's argument, and the argument made by several others who defended Carmelo, was essentially this. Austin Metcalf had no right to tell Carmelo to leave the tent. It was raining. Carmelo needed shelter. Austin was being aggressive by confronting him. And if Austin had a problem with Carmelo being under the tent, he should have gone to a coach instead of handling it himself. Now, the host took this apart piece by piece, and his response was simple. It was their tent. That team had that tent set up for their athletes. Carmelo was not on that team. Carmelo was not competing at that track meet. If someone came and stood under your tent, your team's tent that you set up, you would have every right to ask them to leave. And the host made it even more personal. He said when he was in high school, if another team came under their tent without permission, there would not have been a conversation. There would have been a fight. Not because anyone was evil, not because anyone was racist, but because that is how confrontations work when young men feel like their space is being violated. And here is the painful irony that the host pointed out. The people defending Carmelo, the people saying Austin should have just walked away, would be the first to say that their sons should never back down from disrespect. They are asking Austin Metcalf to have done something, walk away quietly, that they would never ask their own children to do.
How you gonna get run up on somebody cause it's their tent? That's how they can run up on their own tent. And like somebody come and stand up in your stuff and you like, you don't deserve the right to tell a person to leave your tent. It don't matter if it's raining. Go home. You ain't even running at the track meet. And you got a knife in your bag. Go home if it's raining. You under somebody. Bruh, I'm telling you, God is my witness. Let some white dudes go stay up on a black kid tent. They gonna be jumping him. When I was in high school, another team come up under the tent. See, these white kids are a lot more patient than the black kids are. I'm telling you. If you were at Dunbar High School or you at some track meet in Fort Worth and some other dude come up under the tent and you go, hey bro, get out our tent. And you say, I ain't getting out the tent. We gonna be throwing hands. I put my life on it. We will be fighting up under the tent. The crazy thing is that they know that that's how it is, but the white kid is trying to reason with him and end up stabbing him. When he know doggone well, if them white boys came under his tent at his school, people be like, well, man, you gotta get up out this tent or we're gonna start throwing blows. And they act like they victims, knowing that they would have been fighting instead of talking in the first place.
Now, I want to step back for a moment, because in the middle of all the contradictions, in the middle of all the arguments about tents and knives and sentences, there is something that Cardi B said that deserves to be heard without being dismissed. She talked about black mothers. She said black women who have black male children live in fear and agony every single day. And that is true. That fear is documented. It is real. It is lived by millions of women in this country who send their sons out the door every morning and spend the rest of the day hoping nothing goes wrong. And that fear is not irrational, because the statistics are real, because the history is real, because there are too many cases, too many names, too many funerals for that fear to be dismissed as paranoia. And when Cardi B connected this case to that larger fear, she was tapping into something that resonated with a huge portion of the country. The problem was not the fear she described. The problem was the solution she offered. Because telling young men, don't let nobody punk you, always defend yourself, is not a solution to the fear she described. It is fuel for more tragedies like this one. And the host made that point clearly. He said, the conversation we need to be having with young men is not about defending your honor at all costs. It is about emotional regulation, about reading a situation and deciding, is this worth what comes next? About understanding that walking away from a tent in the rain is not weakness, it is survival.
So you show your mom and them how stupid these people are. Roll it.
Black women, especially black women who have black male children, live in fear and agony every single day. A fear and agony that I promise you, the Metcalfs probably never spent a day living that way.
Hold on, time out. Who should be in fear? White mothers with white boys or black mothers with black boys? To me, the one who died was a white kid. So his white mama should be afraid of y'all YNs. Y'all the one killing people. His mama should be afraid. Black women, my mama ain't worried about me because I'm doing the right thing. My mama ain't sitting up at night worried about some white person hurting me. But now she might be because these nut job leftist lunatics. But I'm saying, generally speaking, as a white person, they worry about me because I'm black.
Let us come back to the sentence. 35 years. Carmelo Anthony was 17 years old when this happened. If he serves his full sentence, he will be over 50 years old when he walks out. His entire youth, his 20s, his 30s, his 40s, gone. And the question that people on both sides of this debate are asking is, does that fit the crime? Now, the host's position is clear. Austin Metcalf is dead. One stab to the heart killed a 16-year-old boy who was at a track meet. And accountability for that, real accountability, means a serious consequence. But even the host acknowledged that 35 years raises questions, not about whether Carmelo should be punished, but about whether the sentence would have been the same if the races were reversed. And that is the question that Cardi B was really asking, even if she wrapped it in a contradictory argument. Because if the answer to that question is no, if we genuinely believe that a white teenager who stabbed a black teenager in Texas would have received a lighter sentence, then we have a problem that goes beyond this case. A problem that no amount of arguing about tents and knives and emotional regulation is going to solve.
Us, especially to teach our young black boys, because we have definitely seen this in our community, where the slightest of things has touched off something that can't be reversed. So we need to be having conversation with our young black boys about emotional regulation.
Yep, that's true. That's
and
true.
Decision making and discernment and wisdom. And those are not easy conversations to have in a world that sees them the way that they do, but we have to have them to save them.
Keep going. Keep going. Oh, that's the end of it? See, it's the thing, and I'll move on, I promise, 20 seconds.
Here is the truth about this entire situation. Cardi B was not wrong to raise the race question. That question is legitimate. That question deserves a serious answer. But she undermined her own argument by giving her son's advice that contradicted everything she said about Austin Metcalf. You cannot tell the world that Austin should have walked away quietly and tell your own sons never to back down. You cannot hold both of those positions. And the lawyer who called a murder weapon a tool and pointed out that Carmelo only stabbed Austin once did not help anyone. She made the people who were genuinely concerned about this case look like they were not taking the victim seriously. And that is the tragedy within the tragedy. Because there are real questions here about race, about justice, about whether 35 years is proportionate, about what we are teaching young men about when to fight and when to walk away, about whether the fear black mothers carry is being heard by the people who have the power to change the systems that create that fear. Those are important questions, but they got lost, buried under contradictions and bad arguments and people talking about tools instead of knives. And Austin Metcalf is still dead. And Carmelo Anthony is still going to prison for most of his life. And the argument that was supposed to make people think just made people talk. Drop in the comments, do you think 35 years was the right sentence? And do you think the outcome would have been different if the races were reversed? That conversation, the real one, is in the comments.